Ron Strickland. This webcast is one of a series in which I'm providing some brief lectures and commentaries on topics from the courses I teach in literary and cultural studies. In this installment, I'll provide some introductory background and historical context for my survey in British literature. I'll be referencing points on this map of the British Isles or Great Britain. England, Wales, Scotland, and the island Ireland, now the United Kingdom, and the independent Republic of Ireland. The terms British and Britain are derived from European peoples called Celts or Bretons, who inhabited the British Isles and the northern coast of France, which is still called Brittany. The Celts had invaded the British Isles and settled there in the 4th century before the Christian era. Some of the Celts settled in Ireland and some in England. The Celtic invaders spoke a language that is related to modern Welsh and Irish. Their linguistic and cultural legacy remains distinct from that of the English to this day. The Romans invaded Britain just after the time of Christ, with the conquest dating from the year 43 of the Common Era, during the reign of the Emperor Claudius. And the Romans controlled up to 2/3 of Britain until the beginning of the 5th century. The Romans left their mark on Britain in the form of building roads, establishing market towns, expanding trade with the continent, and, of course, in the magnificent spa at the town of Bath. Britain was part of the Roman Empire, but the Romans didn't settle in Britain. It remained an outpost of the empire. In fact, the Romans were never able to subdue all of the British Isles. The Picts and the Scots, who were indigenous inhabitants of the islands before the Celtic invasions, continued to resist Roman rule and to threaten the Britons in the southern part of the large island. This is a photograph of Hadrian's Wall. Hadrian's Wall was a defense wall built all the way across the north of England during the reign of the Roman Emperor Hadrian, who ruled from 117 to 138 of the Common Era. As you can see, large sections of the wall still stand. This map shows the location of Hadrian's Wall. Essentially, it was an attempt to wall off Scotland. Hadrian's Wall runs for 80 miles across the north of England, from Carlisle on the west coast to Newcastle in the east. During the 5th century, the Romanized Britons in the south of England enlisted the military support of Germanic tribes, the Anglo-Saxons and Jutes, to resist the invasions by the Picts and the Scots from the north. Eventually, the Anglo-Saxons began to establish their own settlements and small kingdoms on the island. After the 6th century, the island was divided, with the eastern part controlled by the Anglo-Saxons, the north and west controlled by the Celtic Britons, and with Picts and Scots in Scotland and Wales. Again, in the 9th century, the British Isles were invaded by Vikings from Sweden and Denmark. These invaders established settlements in the north of England, and their cultural legacy remains in many place names. Danish place names that survive as evidence of the Viking invasions of Great Britain include names with suffixes like "by" and "thorp," which mean village, hence Limby, Grimsby, and Newthorpe. The suffix "thwaite," meaning a clearing, may also be the name of a village, like Crosthwaite Cumleith, which, coincidentally, is a place where one of my ancestors seems to have come from. By the 8th century, the pagan Anglo-Saxons had adopted the Christian religion of the Romanized Celts, whom they had conquered. But the Vikings, like the 5th century invaders, were also Anglo-Saxons and also pagans. So a new influx of paganism challenged the Christian culture of England. The two most substantial documentary records of the Anglo-Saxon culture in first millennium Britain are St. Bede's Ecclesiastical History of Britain and the anonymous poem Beowulf. St. Bede's history is written from the perspective of an Anglo-Saxon Christian a descendant of the 5th century Anglo-Saxon invaders of the British Isle. Beowulf, on the other hand, expresses the perspective of the Viking invaders. Beowulf expresses a mixed pagan and Christian perspective. In my next installment, I'll begin to discuss the Anglo-Saxon poem Beowulf.